And so my prayer today is just for you to really be encouraged and to know the love of God in your life and what he's doing in your life. And may you be motivated and encouraged to go out into out of this building to share the love of Christ to others. But today, we are continuing our series all around, I guess, the spiritual gifts. So Anita started it off last week. And so today we're going to be looking at what we call the motivational gifts that we read in Romans 12. And when I don't know what you hear or think of when you hear the word motivation. For me, I probably think of like the big speeches in history that we kind of have, maybe thinking of people like Martin Luther King or Winston Churchill speaking and motivating and encouraging thousands, if not millions of people, and actually whose words are still around today and often get quoted and thought about today. And actually, if you think about today's culture, motivation is everywhere. You don't have to go far to find a motivational book or video or podcast. And it tells us to be better, to work harder, to push further. And I think if I'm honest, some of it is maybe helpful. But equally, a lot of it is probably a lot of noise as well, and a lot of just words. And when I was kind of praying and preparing into this, I actually stumbled across quite a few motivational self-help books. One of some of my favorite ones, I think maybe I kind of need in my life, is How to Remain Humble when you have never been wrong in your life. I think I need that one. How to Appear Normal at Social Events and Other Essential Wisdom. Maybe you need that one. How to Look Busy at Work while doing absolutely nothing. I promise, Anita, I do some stuff, even when I'm playing Minesweeper or anything like that. Or How to Be a Normal Person. There were some of the books that you could have, but there are some maybe more serious ones, like Atomic Habits, or The Power of Self-Discipline, or The Mountain in You. There's a lot of motivational books. You don't have to go far to find motivation. But actually, I think one thing that I've found is a lot of motivation these days seems to be focused on one thing, and that seems to be about ourselves, and besting ourselves and bettering ourselves. It tells us to improve yourself, build yourself, push yourself, be the best you that you can be. But I believe that the Bible's idea of motivation is very much different. Because as well as the Bible doesn't just motivate us to build ourselves up, it also calls us to use our gifts to build others. And if you think about it, the moments that actually stay with us aren't usually big speeches or anything like that, but actually they're people in our lives. For me, it's my mum pushing me out of the door to try and get a job and to do something in my life. For me, it's my dad encouraging me and supporting me with all my fleeting and hobbies and interests that I have, encouraging me in those and being part of those. We may have people who actually encourage you just right at the right time. Maybe they've helped you when you needed it most, or showed up when you didn't expect it. Those moments stick because they meet us in a place of need. And the truth is, God meets us in our moments of need, and often that is through people. So today we're going to look through at least 3 ways that God does that through us. There's quite a few of the motivational gifts, but we're looking at 3, hopefully, if not, depending on time. 3 of at least of the spiritual gifts, which is encouragement, giving, and mercy. And I think before we kind of go into them, I think it's important to understand where these gifts come from. Because we read in James 1:17 that every good and perfect gift is from above, coming down from the Father of heavenly lights, who does not change like shifting shadows. This verse in James reminds me that every good and perfect gift comes from God. So when we talk about encouragement, giving, and mercy, we're not just talking about personality traits. We're talking about a reflection of God himself. And actually, when I've been thinking about it, a gift itself, I think as well as telling a lot about the receiver, it tells us a lot about the giver as well, and the relationship between the two. And this is evident in this passage because it is written in the middle of actually a chapter about the testing of faith through trials. And it's at the end of this chapter that actually James reminds us that God is good. God is a good and loving God who loves to give gifts. And actually, that even when life gets hard, even when things gets difficult, and we're called to like persevere in these times, we can do so because we know that God delivers each and every time, that God brings and provides for us each and every time the strength that we need. He gives us everything that we need at the time that we need it. And actually, that can often be through people. People who encourage, people who give generously, and people who show mercy and compassion cheerfully and willfully. And so as we read in Romans 12, these motivational gifts in 6 to 8, it says, having gifts that differ according to the grace given to us, let us use them. If prophecy in proportion to our faith, if service in our serving, the one who teaches in his teaching, the one who exhorts or in encouragement in his encouragement, the one who contributes or giving in generosity, the one who leads with zeal, and the one who does acts of mercy with cheerfulness. We see here that actually Paul reminds us that we all have different gifts, but actually they all come under the same grace, and they all come from the same God. And actually, what good is a gift if we don't use them? And so Paul has actually given us not just a list of gifts, but actually how to use them. And so we're going to be looking at, firstly, encouragement. So I'm going to say, let's imagine someone. Should pick someone in this room. I don't know. Say Matt. Matt's had a really awful, horrible day. Things just haven't gone right for him. He's made breakfast or something and spilt the milk everywhere. That hasn't gone right. Maybe he overslept. And then the people that when he is traveling to work and there's traffic everywhere, maybe there's a crash, and so that slows him down. And the people that the houses that he goes to do all his work and all that kind of thing, they've been really bossy. If you haven't made him a cup of tea, they're ignoring him, and he's just been really grumpy and horrible. And it's not even lunchtime. Then after lunchtime, things don't go. There's burst pipes go everywhere, water goes everywhere. It's just an awful, awful day, and he's really discouraged. I'm not judging your your work. But it could be really go, why on earth did I choose this? Why on earth did I do this job? And in those moments, someone may come and go, oh, Matt, you got a really good, a really nice coat on. I really like that coat. And you're like, oh, thank you. And he may feel maybe a bit encouraged, and like he may feel nice about himself. But actually, it doesn't actually meet what he's carrying. It doesn't actually meet or talk into the situation that he's in. But then imagine maybe another scenario where actually he's really coming back, and maybe he's come home at this point, and then he meets Chelsea, and he goes, oh, Chelsea, it's been a really horrible day. And then Chelsea goes, Matt, I know it's been really hard. I know that things haven't really gone well today, but know that God is with you in that time. Then actually, even in those frustrations, even when things haven't gone right, how you've carried yourself, how you've prepared yourself, actually that shows God to other people. So I believe that God is still using you in those times, and I bet you're making more of a difference than you realize. If you compare the two, one's a compliment, and one may build you up slightly, but actually it will go in quite an instant. But then you got another one that actually, hopefully, it strengthens the person. It meets what they are carrying. Compliments may lift the mood. It may encourage Matt to wear his coat more often. That encouragement strengthens the soul. And encouragement isn't just words from a distance. It's not just saying something nice and moving on. Encouragement comes alongside people. It's being present with them in what they're going through. Not speaking from the sidelines, but stepping into it with them. Proverbs 16:24 says, gracious words are a honeycomb, sweet to the soul and healing to the bones. Our words matter. They have power to change a situation, to bring strength, hope, reassurance, to build. So what are you speaking into? What are you building up? Because I think anyone can say a nice word to someone. And I know I say that we should compliment people. We should be nice to people. I'm not saying that we shouldn't. But what I'm saying is that we are called to do much more than that. To speak into someone's life, to bring light and hope to their situation. 1 Thessalonians 5:11 says to encourage one another and build each other up. Hebrews 10 says to consider how to stir one another up. in love and good works. Encouragement isn't just random kindness or about lifting someone's ego. It's intentional building of faith. We should be spurring one another on for the glory of God, and as we go and love and serve other people. Which is important because I think this world and so many people are just live with unspoken disappointment and discouragement. Proverbs 17 says that a cheerful heart is good medicine, but a crushed spirit dries up the bones. Discouragement is a silent killer of faith. Maybe we don't talk about it, or maybe we don't even recognize what's going on, but it's there. It eats away, and maybe it eats away at our soul, eats away at our faith. Because it doesn't just affect how we feel, but how we live and our faith. And actually, it can come from any number of sources. But actually, the great source of encouragement is the Bible. In Psalm 34, it says that the Lord is close to the brokenhearted and saves the crushed in spirit. So we know that the Lord is with us, and he's encouraging us, and he's near. He's not far when we're in those discouraging moments. But it also says in Galatians 6 that we are to carry one another's burdens. So we're equally not meant to run away, but we're meant to press in, to come near to that person, and to not to just go, oh, you're doing really well, but actually to support them, to lend them our strength and our comfort. Because we may not know someone's story or what they're going through, but we can bring God to them. Be God's voice of encouragement, saying what they need to hear. And I think that's actually another key distinction. That encouragement doesn't just say what we want to hear, but actually what they need to hear when they need to hear it. And actually a good example of an encourager I find is Caleb. Maybe you can see maybe he wasn't necessarily successful because we read him in Numbers 13 to 14. That actually, so the Israelites are journeying towards the promised land. They're right at the edge, and they get the spies to go in, which Caleb is a part of. And they come back to give a bit of a feedback and a report. Everyone else goes, yes, the land is great. But have you seen the opposition? Have you seen the other side? Have you seen what we're up against? We can't do that. We've got no chance. But Caleb goes, yes, I agree. That actually, the land itself, what the Lord has given us, is exceedingly good. But we also know that God is with us. And if he's promised us this land, actually, we know if the Lord wills, we will take this land. We will journey into this. Sadly, the people didn't necessarily agree with that, and I think that's part of the lesson as well. That actually, we can give encouragement, but it's all down to the person whether they receive it or not. But actually, as we see with Caleb, okay, it may not have been a successful piece of encouragement for them, but actually what he did was he saw the situation, he saw what was going on, he saw the opposition, he didn't deny what was going on. But what he did, he pointed it all back to God. He saw beyond the situation to what God had promised, and to bring hope and to bring light to that. So I really like that model of encouragement, because to be an encourager doesn't mean to be blindly optimistic, but it's hope grounded in God. It means the holding of and sharing of hope and seeing beyond the current situation. And actually, when I think of an encourager, I mean, for most things, my mind goes to Lord of the Rings, and one of my favorite characters is Samwise Gamgee. I think he's probably the best. And in the books, we see Frodo, who's like the main protagonist, the main character, and he gets to a point where all he sees is destruction. He's lost hope, basically, and he goes to Sam and says, Sam, I can't do this. But what Sam says is like, I know it's all wrong. By rights, we shouldn't even be here, but we are. It's like in the great stories, Mr. Frodo, the ones that really mattered. Full of darkness and danger they were, and sometimes you didn't want to know the end, because how could the end be happy? How could the world go back to the way it was when so much bad has happened? But in the end, it's only a passing thing, this shadow. Even darkness must pass. A new day will come. When the sun shines, it will shine out the clearer. There were stories that stayed with you, that meant something, even if you were too small to understand why. But I think, Mr. Frodo, I do understand. I know now. Folk in those stories had lots of chances to turn back, only they didn't. They kept going because they were holding on to something. Which Frodo says, what are we holding on to, Sam? That there's some good in this world, Mr. Frodo, and it's worth fighting for. Sam saw the situation they were in, but yet he chose to look beyond it, and he chose to hope. In that moment, Sam could have gone, yeah, this is an awful situation, I agree. Well, I think we've got no chance, but only small hobbits. We can't do anything against this power of this evil. You're right, should we just go back home and just kind of give up? But instead, he said, you're right. There's a lot going wrong, but let's not give up. Because there's still good in this world. It's worth holding on to, and it's worth fighting for. He redirected Frodo's discouragement to the hope that could be. And then another scene, I'm not going to go into that one too, but there's another scene right at the end of Lord of the Rings where Frodo is right at the mountain and he can't take another step. And what I love what Sam says is, I may not be able to carry your burden, but I can carry you. So he carries Frodo up that mountain. We may not be able to necessarily stop what someone's going through. We may not necessarily be able to actually carry what they're going through, but what we can do is help them through it. Lend them our strength, pick up what maybe they have dropped. We can continue to speak life, hope, truth to them. Encourage them to take another step. A quote that I liked from, I believe it's George Adams, says, encouragement is oxygen for the soul. And I love that analogy because you can't really live without oxygen when you have it. But actually, I think you realize you haven't got oxygen because you start panicking. So you realize when there's no oxygen in your lungs. And in the same way, I think encouragement kind of works the same way, because I think you can live with maybe without water or food for a bit, but actually with encouragement, you realize that. And so actually when it's there, when someone's speaking life and hope into you, standing with you, you can keep going. And you can endure more, you can push through more, you can hold on to hope. But actually when it's missing, all you hear then is criticism, silence, and doubt. And actually that's when things start to feel heavy. And actually that's when people begin to question themselves and to lose faith. Encouragement doesn't just remove the struggle, but gives you the strength to breathe through it. And that's why I think it matters so much. Because sometimes the most spiritual thing you can do for someone is simply help them to breathe. So that's encouragement. So we're going to go into giving. And I think I'm not one of them, but there are many people that are gifted givers. They just seem to know what people need, what people want, and be able to think creatively about how to go about it and to execute it well. That's not my approach, though. I spend a long time thinking about what to get someone, and I go, this is the perfect gift. And then I panic. I worry that maybe this is not going to go right. Maybe they take it the wrong way. Maybe have I just imagined they liked this thing? Or maybe they've already got it, and I'm just bought them something they don't actually need. I'm a panic buyer, and I buy a giver. But I still like to give gifts. I like to give gifts to people. And I think actually most people, are the same, that they like to know that they got something to give. And so actually I do find it interesting that the act of giving is seen as a gift. And as I think about it, I think the answer is really kind of twofold. That actually, firstly, as I've already said, that some people just have an ability to see the needs of others and have the desire and the willingness to meet that need. But secondly, I think it reflects the posture of the heart. That actually, as we go back in this Romans 12 passage, that actually Paul says to not only give, but to give generously. And I think that word generously is key because it implies an abundance, going beyond what may be required for there to be a sacrifice within that. And there are a lot of reasons why for people to give. Maybe it's birthdays, Christmases, weddings, charity. Maybe we don't want something, so we kind of hope to pass it on to someone else that maybe may be a benefit to them. But the gifts that mean the most of us are actually wrapped around in love. Obviously, often, I guess, what gets brought around is actually, it's not about the gift itself, but it's the thought behind it. And actually, I think that's probably partly true, actually. If you know someone's thought about you and went out of their way and maybe sacrificed something for you, then it means more. And I think that's where we begin to understand what Paul means in Romans 12. Because I don't think the gift of giving is really about the item itself. But that's actually, it's the heart behind it. A good example of this is actually the church in Macedonia, that we read about in 2 Corinthians 8. That we see that actually in the churches in Macedonia, they received a huge wealth of generosity. And what did they decide to do? actually read in verse 4 and 5, actually they gave according to their means, and then some more. And actually, they didn't just give it, but actually they begged for the money to be used actually for the purpose of to relieve the Christians in Jerusalem. What an amazing heart to have. And if I was given a large sum of money, if I was the Macedonian church, I would like to think I would give a good chunk of it to charity for people that need it. But equally, I think about what things I kind of want to do. Maybe take myself on holiday, enjoy a bit, maybe buy a house or a car or something like that, enjoy part of it, but then give them. That'd be my first kind of thought process. But not the churches in Macedonia. They saw their blessing. They saw their gift given to them. But they didn't see it as a reward for good works, but actually an opportunity to serve and meet the needs of others. And a phrase that I always try to remember is blessed to be a blessing. That we are called not just to be blessed, but actually to use that blessing to bless others. And God himself is a gracious and loving God, and we should appreciate, enjoy, and thank him for every gift given to us. And actually, it's not like we should just pass on a gift like out of not being thankful for what it is. Go, oh, thanks, and pass it on. We're not called to do it that way, but actually, we are to see the opportunities that this gift has given to us. Do we see it as not just a blessing, but a chance to serve and meet the needs of others? And actually, not to do it begrudgingly, but out of duty or reciprocation. As we read in chapter 9 of 2 Corinthians, it says that Paul says that the offering from the Macedonian churches were a willing gift, not as a way to expect something in return. They were willing, sacrificial, and cheerful in their giving. And actually in verse 7 it says that everyone must decide how much they are willing to give, under no reluctance or compulsion, but to do so cheerfully. And I love that because there's no quantity there. It's not saying that we should give an X amount, but actually look into your heart, pray into it. What is God saying for you to give? Because generosity will look different to different people. Some may have lots, may have some little. I think of the poor widow in the Gospels, who Jesus said that she gave more than anybody else because she gave out of her poverty, not out of her riches. But actually, what is the point of all of this? Why do we give? We give because God freely and willingly gave to us. We give because our hearts should ache for those in need. But actually, it should also shape our heart because we give generously. We are choosing to trust in the provision of God. Because it is important to know that we can only give what we have first received. And as we see in James 1:17, that actually everything comes from God, that every good and perfect gift comes from God. Which means actually we need to be in a relationship with the Father, and it's from that abundance do we give. If not, we only run dry and burn out. Because I think it's important to actually realize that the gift of giving is not necessarily talking about financial giving, but actually it's about giving in any kind of sense, whether that's time or effort, our creativity, our kindness, our patience, our intelligence, our humor maybe. All are a gift and can be given. And actually some of the most powerful generosity that we can have is actually giving time giving time when you're busy, or listening actually when you just really want to sleep, or showing up when it's inconvenient for you. And actually I look at Moses. He didn't necessarily have a lot to offer, and he even told God so. But what did God say? It says, "What is in your hand?" And all Moses had was a staff and a bit of faith. And that was enough to save the Israelite nation. But I think it's important to be wise in our giving, because we are called to give generously, but not foolishly or recklessly. We should be, without wisdom, sometimes giving can actually be more harmful than good. And so it's important to involve God and ask him how he wishes you to give, because we are called to be wise stewards and honor God. If you have a generous spirit, but actually that is causing you to grow weary and exhausted, and you actually realize it's impacting your own relationship with God, then maybe you need to reflect on how much you are giving. Which is actually when I say the encouragers should then come in to then talk to them and actually prompt them and encourage them to actually on that journey, on that growth journey, and actually how to use your gifts wisely. Because at the end of the day, generosity isn't about how much we have, but it's about, are we willing and are we able to give? And actually, sometimes what people deem most isn't what we think. I see in Acts 3 that actually Peter and John, they're going off to the temple to pray. And there's a paralyzed man. So it's someone who couldn't walk, but who was begging. And he was also asking for money. But Peter and John actually said, well, like gold and silver I do not have, but what I have I give you. In the name of the Lord Jesus Christ, stand up. They didn't give him money. That's what he kind of needed, or at least what he thought he needed. But what they did instead was give him Jesus. Because actually that's probably the greatest gift that we can ever give. It's not something from us, but actually it's from someone greater than us. Actually, the most generous thing that we can give to someone is Jesus. And actually, I think that can look different for each person. For some, they may need that physical provision or healing or comforting word. And for some, it may look like compassion. So actually, that's where we see this gift of mercy come in. Actually, when Paul talks about mercy in Romans 12, he says that those who show mercy should do so with cheerfulness. And if I'm honest, that feels difficult. Because actually the idea behind mercy is the withholding of punishment to someone who actually deserves it. And for many, that won't be a cheerful thing. Because if someone hurt me, and if they apologize, maybe it'd be a bit easier to show mercy. But actually, what if they don't apologize or recognize that actually the hurt they caused? Because actually, I think we all have that desire to see justice paid out. And actually, maybe if we don't, then maybe we may be tempted to take matters into our own hands. Or at the very least of it, let it eat away at us. But actually, when I think about mercy, I really felt led to this verse in Micah 6. For me, it's quite well known. It says, what does the Lord require of you? To act justly, and to love mercy, and to walk humbly with God. And I felt challenged by it because of the grouping, that actually we are called to act justly. And it's not wrong for us to seek justice, to push for things to be made right. But actually, with that, we are called to love mercy. But actually, we see that justice and mercy are in the same sentence, because actually both are foundational to God's character. And actually, love mercy contains the Hebrew word hesed, which actually means loyal love or loving kindness. Actually, God expects his people to love others in kind, loyal, and merciful ways, the same way that he has done for us. Which is why Micah says to walk humbly, because actually we recognize the mercy given to us from God by sending his son to die on that cross. So why show mercy? Because we recognize that we don't deserve it, and yet it was shown to us. So actually, we should be spurred on to then give mercy to others. And actually, mercy is more than just letting someone off the hook. It's not just ignoring the wrong that was made. It's not pretending that it didn't hurt. But mercy is choosing compassion when bitterness and hatred would be easier. It takes a step forward when our instinct is maybe to walk away. It goes beyond the person and sees the heart and their brokenness. And actually, I think mercy can sometimes be seen as a weakness. But I would say actually showing mercy is probably one of the strongest things that we could ever do. Because from mercy comes healing, comes restoration, comes peace, comes unity. And some, if not all, of God's best works actually comes from ways of mercy and compassion. God took mercy on the Israelites time and time again and led them through that desert into the promised land. Jesus showed mercy time and time again to the sinners, to the tax collectors, the poor, the hated, the marginalized on a daily basis. And actually, through God's mercy, they were able to meet with Jesus and be transformed by him. It may surprise people actually that mercy is a spiritual gift, because actually it's one that we don't really think about or recognize, particularly compared to maybe some of the others. But actually, I think I find a good modern example of mercy, and actually what it can maybe look like, is a guy called Josh Combs. You can probably find him on Instagram, on YouTube, and all these things. He's a hairdresser in London, and what he does, he goes through the streets of London. He goes around and does all the hair for the homeless that he meets. He interviews them, gets to know them, gets to know their story, and shows compassion on them when maybe people would maybe walk the other way. And actually he uses his skills to bless them. Do you know that mercy is a verb? It's not just, it's a doing word. It's just not an adjective. It's a doing word. Because it says in Romans 12 that it's acts of mercy. Meaning it's not passive, but it's active compassion towards others. And I'm not standing here to say that it's going to be easy. That actually to show mercy is going to cost us. It's going to be sacrificial. But I believe this, that actually when we step into mercy, we step into the work of God. Actually, the Bible says that those who sow generously will reap generously. And I believe that through your mercy, you'll witness the good and healing power of God in those people. And you know, it can be a scary step. But all it takes is asking God to break your heart for what breaks his. And allow him to stir your spirit for the lost and for the broken. There are a lot of broken people in this world. And actually what they need most is maybe a bit of mercy. And actually, as we come to a close, I actually believe that the more that we lean into these gifts of encouragement, of giving, and of mercy, that actually the more we begin to reflect the heart of God. And as we see in James 1, that these good and perfect gifts come from God. And through receiving them, we see more of God. And by using them, it actually opens opportunity for God to reveal himself to others. Because God is an encourager. He says, do not be afraid. It says to be bold and courageous, for I am with you. He is a giver. The Bible always says that God is a generous giver. He loves to give to his children. He loves to give good and perfect gifts. But he's also merciful. We've also, because we reflected today with the communion, that actually God is a merciful God. And the greatest sign of that is by sending his son, Jesus, to die on that cross for us. And so maybe actually you felt stirred, or actually maybe one of these kind of gifts has stood out to you, or maybe it's of encouragement, giving, or mercy. And maybe you haven't fully stepped into it yet. And I just want to encourage you. Actually, this is an invitation for you to step into it. Or actually, maybe you need some encouragement today, or maybe you need to be given something to receive something. Or maybe you need some compassion. Maybe I would encourage you to find someone at the end of the service, maybe with a tea or coffee, to speak to them. We got a need to hear. We got the church leaders. You got me. Or just find a friend and speak to them. But more importantly, speak to God, talk to him, and open yourself to him. Because actually, there's an invitation to step into what God has already placed in you. Because we have been given a gift of encouragement, actually, to hold on and hold on to hope and to see beyond the current situation and build others up in faith. We've been given the gift of giving to meet the needs of others, to operate generously from the abundant supply of our God. And we've been given the gift of mercy to show love and compassion to others, to choose healing over and peace over bitterness and anger, and move towards people in their brokenness. And so we're going to pray, and actually be a prayer of response. And as we do so, I'm going to invite you to respond maybe physically as well, because I think it's good to do so, as a way of just engaging our heart and our minds with this. So I was going to pray for us, and then we'll close. So we're going to talk about encouragement, and so I'll encourage you to put your hand on your heart. Lord, thank you for the gift of encouragement. May you equip us to speak light into the dark, hope into dread, and strength into fear. May our words build up. May our words point people to you. And with giving, I say just reach out your hands in like a giving kind of posture. Lord, thank you for the gift of giving. Everything that we have comes from you. Teach us to trust you, to live generously, and to give with wisdom, joy, and freedom. With mercy, may your hands out like you're on the cross. Lord, thank you for your mercy. Thank you that you have shown it to us time and time again. Would you break our hearts for what breaks yours? Help us to choose compassion over judgment and to walk humbly and with you, our God. Amen.